What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Is This for Kids? I'm Jonathan Bearded Blevins, husband and father of 4. And I think that most media marketed towards children is ruining society.
And I am Katie, MrsRuvi. I am mother of 5. I have an awesome husband who's a fantastic father. And that is really the big deviation point in this topic that we're going to talk about today. Today we were talking about...
I thought you were going to say deviation point between my husband and you. And I was like, whoa.
I mean, that would be rude.
The topic today.
So today's topic is usually we talk about how, there's things that you can shield, things you can shepherd a kid through, and how you can share in something. But today's topic is something that is commonly embraced by young men, but really, really, really not appropriate for young men. And that's Andrew Tate.
Yes, the Andrew Tate.
The Andrew Tate. It's like Ohio State. They do have a similar vibe.
Yikes. I don't think you can say that about Ohio State.
Just saying.
Go Notre Dame. Just kidding. That was painful. Go Michigan.
So Andrew Tate, you are very familiar with Andrew Tate and maybe why he's interesting to young boys. So if people out there have no idea who Andrew Tate is, they've maybe heard it come up a little bit because he's sort of been in the ether lately. Who's Andrew Tate?
Andrew Tate is, I hate using this word to describe anyone, but an influencer, if you will, kind of a con artist. He is under house arrest for some pretty wild allegations. He has admitted to doing some pretty awful things in the world, including setting up websites to make money off of ladies. And yeah, he has a massive following. He was doing podcasting for a long time, has a huge presence on X, formerly known as Twitter, and has a massive, massive following of young, impressionable men. And not just young, like 13, 14, 15, 16, but like anyone, really. Like there are 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds who I see on Twitter who post trying to get reactions from him. And I don't want to go like super into all the crazy stuff that he's done. If you want to bring some of that stuff up, you can. He's done some pretty awful things. A lot of his defenders will say that he has changed and that he regrets some of the mistakes that he made. But just a few days ago, he posted a pretty awful post on Twitter and has been getting a ton of backlash for it from people on both the political left, the political right. I mean, a lot of people disassociating themselves from him, and rightfully so and understandably so. But he has one of the biggest followings in the world right now.
Yeah. And
so the conversation needs to happen so that parents understand who he is and what their kids are listening to.
Yeah. And so this is always true of this podcast, but just in case you forgot, this is not a podcast for children. So if you have your kids listening right now in the car, please turn this off. Because I do think when you say Andrew Tate is a bad influencer, a bad guy, like some of that gets sort of lost in what it is that he actually admittedly did. So like Andrew Tate became wealthy by encouraging young women, potentially underaged women, although that is a allegation. It's not proven at this time. So we'll just say at the minimum, young ladies, by getting them to fall in love with him, thinking he was awesome, and then convincing them to do pornography online.
Yeah.
Do live webcams and things like that, for which he would take a large percentage of the money. And depending on who you ask and what allegations have been proven now, would or would not pay those young ladies. So at a bare minimum, this man is the definition of a pimp. Like he would take young women, groom them to believe that in order to love him properly, they needed to do X, Y, and Z with strangers on the internet. And he financially profited from this.
Yeah.
That is how he became wealthy. There is no question about that. He doesn't deny that. He denies whether or not it was illegal. He denies whether or not it was inappropriate, but he does not deny that that's exactly what he did. So at a bare minimum, is, allowing your children to be influenced by that person is, you have to understand that that's what you're agreeing to at the bottom line. Whether, actual laws were broken or not aside, that's the end story there. And then from there, when he realized he could have all this influence on people who were younger and without even being in a pornographic sphere, he started something called Hustlers University, where he claimed he was going to teach young men how to get this sort of influence over women and girls, which is terrifying. So this is where a lot of the quotable moments that you have from Andrew Tate that you'll hear middle school boys quote come from things like this, where he's saying how you can get girls to care about you, basically.
Yeah. And just for context, again, because there's a lot of, if I bring him up when I'm live streaming, inevitably there's people who are fans of him and they'll defend him. As of 2 weeks ago, He tweeted, "Fact, women are sex workers. Their primary job now is to find one customer called a boyfriend to pay for their entire lives in return for, if they fail at this, they do OnlyFans or porn, the same game with more than one customer. If they're ugly, they work a job badly and are miserable."
Yeah.
So that was just 2 weeks ago.
So this is post he's gotten better. This is post reforming himself. So why is it that he appeals to young men? Like, what is that?
Okay. And here's the thing, because he does, and I understand why he does. So the world kind of tells you now that what it means to be a man is very different than what we've really known men to be for thousands of years, right? You don't have to be a protector anymore. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be a provider anymore, because women can work and earn and provide. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be in physical shape. You can look however you want. Everyone looks beautiful, and everyone can be a model and a winner. You don't have to make a ton of money. The government will take care of you. There's all these kinds of like things that the world is kind of telling young men. And in comes Andrew Tate, and he says, a man should be strong. A man should conquer. We've been born to do this. A man should provide. A man should protect. A man should be able to defend the person that he's with. A man should be in charge. And so it appeals to a lot of truths that I personally think that a man should provide and should protect and should defend and should be the best version of themselves. I think that's something that God has made us to do. I think God has made men and women different for a reason. And so that part is appealing to young men in a huge way. And he tricks them into thinking that he can help them do all of these things. And he does that by giving them attention. So he'll reply to a ton of people on Twitter. There's a guy that I follow on and have followed for a while on Twitter who used to watch my stream a lot. And he tweets his entire life to Andrew Tate. I'm going to court to help to fight for my son because his mom is awful. Please pray for me. And Andrew and his brother will respond like, you're a W man. Like, go get him, defend your family. And then he's empowered to go and then defend Andrew Tate and get all of his followers to follow him as well. And so it's this kind of giant self-fulfilling thing that Andrew Tate profits off of by making men think that he cares about them, when in reality he really doesn't.
Right. It's almost as if he did the exact same thing he did to young girls to get them to perform on webcams for young men, except they're not realizing that they're being manipulated in the same way, which is very sad. One of the things I think that people run the risk of doing is just saying, Andrew Tate's a monster. I don't need to know anything about him. I don't need to care anything about him. Just, we're not going to talk about it. Because what you're saying is right. There is a grain of truth in the things that he's saying that is appealing to young men. And if you fail to recognize that and you fail to address it, then you're going to find yourself, he's not going to fail to address it. He's not going to fail to go look for your kid, because your kid is money for him. Whereas for you, this is just the person you love and want to grow into being a decent human being, right? You cannot just sit on the sidelines if you start hearing your kid saying things that came out of Andrew Tate's mouth. And there's no way you're going to know what came out of Andrew Tate's mouth if you're not familiar with who he is. I'm not saying go out and like watch everything he's ever put out there, but at least have like a working familiarity. Know how to recognize him if you saw him on your TV, is what I'm saying. He's a charming guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you listen to him talk, like, he's in good shape. He's a good looking dude. He smokes cigars, which are like totally in now for feels like the first time in like 50 years. It's cool to smoke cigars. So he'll have them at all times. His shirt's always off. And like he has this voice that's like really fun to listen to. And a strange accent.
Yeah, he's got this. You want to be a man?
Yeah.
You want to be a man? You have to do this. You have to conquer your woman.
He's not English. I don't know.
No, but that's how he sounds 100%.
He does have like a weird, I don't know what it is. Anyway.
He has to be a man.
Yeah.
Here's the issue. So I have to speak of this as a Catholic guy, right? Mm-hmm. That's where this comes from, my belief on manhood and what it means to be a man, what it means to be a dad, a husband. He's all about, this is where he fails. Mm-hmm. And this is besides just the awful things he says and does. You can look that up. It's everywhere. Mm-hmm. You conquer your finances. You conquer your body. You conquer the woman in your life. You conquer your job, all of these things. But the one thing that Andrew Tate cannot conquer, that a real man needs to conquer, is his ego.
Oh, yeah, ego.
His mouth, his ego. Like we all bleed the same. We're all the same. And if we're our own God in our own life, it's not going to be good. It's nothing but bad is going to come from that. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the biggest issues, I think, outside of all the awful things that he does and says, that young men need to be careful of and that parents need to be aware of, is that you cannot have this. It's good. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance. And he is just this massively arrogant guy who is not conquering his own ego. And as a man, that's something that you absolutely have to have control over.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a friend, Pat Nevy, who just tweeted something about, he wasn't specifically talking about Andrew Tate when he said it, but he was just saying that he's really sick right now of there being a whole lot of men who are obsessed with the patriarchy who aren't even fathers. Andrew Tate's not a father. He's not invested in anybody's upbringing or anybody's goodness. Whereas we have a lot of fathers who watch this show and they have the ability to influence their kids positively. So when you're looking for people to replace Andrew Tate for your kid, the number one person that I would recommend is fathers. And you are huge in talking about the importance of fathers. So what would you offer to your sons in lieu of Andrew Tate?
Well, the first thing I would say is that when you're a father, the best way that you can show your kids how to be a man is how you treat your wife. And so I'm very good. This sounds arrogant. I don't yell at my wife. I don't.
It's not arrogant to not yell at your wife. That's pretty good.
Well, but I'm not like I'm the perfect husband because no one's perfect. But like I don't yell at my wife in front of my kids or ever because they could hear it anywhere in the house. I treat her with respect. If we have to have a conversation that is really important, we'll walk into a different room and not have that in front of our kids. Kiss her before I leave the house, like all kinds of things that you can just show because that's what they're watching, right? That's what your sons are watching, how you treat your wife and how you treat them. And your daughter is watching how dad treats mom. Mm-hmm. And that's who she will end up looking for. And so like, that's first and foremost is just being who you want your sons to be and being the kind of person that you would want your daughter to marry someday.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a dad. I'm a mom. I have a great husband who does all of the things that you're talking about. I think if my husband ever yelled at me or anyone, I would be terrified, but he never has. My husband's very manly looking and it would scare giants if he yelled at them, I think. Would be very scary. But as far as like influencers or other people, if your kids are interested in books or things like that, if I had to give a recommendation beyond just dads, one guy I would recommend with a big asterisk next to it is David Goggins. He does have a lot of language. He had
Jacked Navy SEAL.
Jacked Navy SEAL. You can buy his books in a PG version where they take out all the swears, which we have gotten for our son. And he's very into physical fitness. He's very into self-discipline. He's very into having control over your emotions. But he does talk a lot about his childhood trauma. He's faced a lot of racism and abuse in his life. And so if that's not something you want your kid to read about, certainly don't offer them those books. But if you are okay having conversations and maybe reading along with your kid, and your kid is interested in a discipline, conquer your vices kind of thing, that might be a good place to start. And he has a similar feel in the like, rawr, let's go get him, I'm a Navy SEAL kind of way that Andrew Tate does without the, hating women and being awful part of it. And then if you want something that's like quite a few steps below that, a lot more to do with discipline and self-authorship, that kind of thing. James Clear is a great option. He wrote the Atomic Habits book, which is very, very popular. He's written several other books that are pretty popular that don't, as far as I can remember, don't have any swearing in them, but there you go.
So here's a guy I'm not endorsing by any means, but he said something recently that I really liked. Russell Brand has had a crazy past as well. He is like Catholic now and like all into his faith. I just pray that that's awesome and authentic and legit. But he said something recently. He said, I used to want to be Jesus, mm-hmm. and now I just want to be like him. And I love that because for me, there's only one person that I want to be like, and that's Jesus. And I know this is not a Christian podcast per se, but that's who it is for me. Ultimate role model. Talk about self-sacrifice, protector, what it means to like show true love. I think that's who we should be appointing our children to, in my estimation.
Yeah, I do not disagree at all. Go team.
What a blessing.
All right. So, hey, if people enjoyed this, they have questions about other, movies, podcasters, famous people, where could they find it?
Go to isthisforkids.com. You can find everything that we're doing there. We're very active on YouTube and Instagram, so let us know what you would like us to be talking about next. And message to dads out there, be awesome for your wife and kids.
Absolutely. Hey, there's just so much out there for us to know about as parents.
I'm Jonathan Beard of Blevins.
I'm Katie, MrsRuvi. Let us help you decide.
Is this for kids?